All rise for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Adds, changes?
Yep. Mr. Mayor, we have several changes. We have one under 4F. Number 4F on the consent agenda should be removed, the EMT appointment. And then there are 3 additional fire department hires under item 4I on the consent agenda.
All right. Make a motion to approve agenda.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Open forum. Anybody want to speak about anything? Doesn't look like it. On to the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, approval of bills, purchase orders, approval of investments, office assistant 3-step increase, prorating club license fee, EMT appointment has been removed, pay voucher number 1, police reserve hire, fire department hire. That's for a total of 5 hires. 2 that have been interviewed already, 3 that are going to be added when they pass all the background checks and stuff. Are there any questions, any discussion? No.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I only have one question. The pay voucher number 1, that was to Mark Lee Paving.
Correct.
That was in regards to
5th, Molly's Hill project.
Molly's Hill project, okay.
Yep.
Motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We're on to public hearings. On sale 3.2% malt liquor license and wine license request, Martinez Meat and Grocery. That is, they're looking for a on sale 3.2 and wine sales
Yep.
license. And city administrator to present the affidavit of publication.
Yep.
Public hearing notice. We'll open up that public hearing right at 6:03. Anybody have any questions or comments on that from the public? Doesn't appear to be. Close it at 6:03 and 30 seconds. Is there any background information you want to provide on that, or?
Just simply that their request has been made by Maria De Lourdes Martinez, doing business as Martinez Meat and Grocery, for an on-sale 3.2% malt liquor and wine license.
Okay. All right, so we will move on to the next public hearing. We'll take a vote up on that later, right? 5B, Warrior Boat Drainage and Utility Easement Vacation. So if I understand this correctly, they originally built on the corner lot there, which was 1 lot, and there was 4 total in that loop, and they have since taken ownership of all 4 of those.
So,
Okay, Lisa's got
yep,
some comments.
Lisa has some
There you go.
information for you, so I'll refer that to her.
Good evening. Before you tonight is a request to vacate the easement on a parcel owned by Warrior Boats. It was originally 4 parcels, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Block 6 out in the industrial park. They have purchased all 4 properties and combined them into 1 lot. And to make use of their lot, they would like to see the easement vacated.
Very good. And we have no use for them because
There
it's
are
all
no-
their
there's-
property, so they have access, or the city would have access to anything on that property because they own all of the property.
They own all of it. If we needed to put...
If they
and-
requested some utilities.
Yes, if we needed to put utilities in the future, we would have to request
Right.
an access easement for that. The Public Utilities Commission has reviewed it and sees no problem with vacating it, as has the Utilities Department.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
Miss Lisa, that doesn't affect any of the drainage on the south side of that whole block?
Well, there's no drainage.
It just looked like there was a little bit of a lower area there.
There might be, but it's completely their lot, so
Okay.
typically we wouldn't retain drainage easements unless they were significant, like you know, in the cases where you've actually got a drainage pond. There's no drainage pond on this property. The drainage utility easements around the perimeter of the property are being retained. It is simply the interior easements that are being vacated.
I think there was a lot of drainage concerns a number of years ago from water coming across as a county road, I can't one.
Oh, okay.
186?
186 along the highway there.
Oh, okay.
But
I
that
wasn't aware of
wouldn't
that.
affect that issue anyway, because
Yeah,
this
it
is. Yeah.
should.
Okay. All right, I guess we have to open up the public hearing at 6:07 for any public comment. I guess we'll close, being there is no public comment at 6:07 also. And we'll move on to reports. 6A, Police Department Monthly Report.
Good evening. We have our June 2020 report. In our traffic area, 26 citations were issued, 47 verbal warnings, 2 written warnings. For June of 2020, we had 292 calls or requests for service. Last year was 347. We ended on ICR 1968, and last year was 2320, so we're down 352 for the year. 23 agency assist seems to be hovering around that low 20s range for the whole year so far, so that's consistent. Some area of note, we've been dealing with some noise-related issues related to dirt bikes, pit bikes, mini bikes. I guess they all have a flavor or name to them. We did have one individual that we have cited now with a state citation for public nuisance violations. There were 4 warnings given to this individual, and it's not related to the bike itself being operated on private property. It's the noise of the bike that's causing issues within the neighborhood. We brought a copy of the ordinance over there to explain this is the standpoint, or this is what we're covering, or the reason why we are getting involved with the situation, and it did not stop or change. So there was a citation issued this week to that individual, and there's going to be a mandatory court date because we went with a state route instead of a city route for various reasons. But so there will be a court date coming whenever court opens back up
Okay.
for the full flow.
Will you have to be represented there?
The first initial appearance, they'll give their guilty, not guilty, or any of those sorts of things, so we won't have to be at that round. But if they choose to move on with a jury trial or any other sort of court-related action, then we'll have to send somebody.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any questions?
Greg?
Nope, sounds good, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. 6B, City Attorney Report.
Sir, I don't have a written report for you this week. Handful of items been working on. Going to give you an update on the nuisance properties. At the June meeting, you approved 4 abatement orders. The good news is that, after serving those orders, 3 of them have been taken care of, and so they're resolved and those are done. The 4th one, earlier this week, I was hoping to be able to tell you that we were 4 for 4, and it looked like the last one was going to get resolved, but good intentions didn't quite make it. So we're going to go forward with enforcing that one, and so we'll keep you updated as it goes on. So the next step, we're working out some service issues, but we'll get that sorted out, and then the next step would be taking it to filing with the district court and putting it on for a hearing. You'll notice that you've got a variance request there, and I'm sure Lisa will give you more details, but there's various projects going on in town, and they're generating some requests for variances. So I've spent a little time with the staff kind of going through those requests and making sure that what they're asking for is appropriate under our ordinances. The last one, it's really more of an update, and again, Lisa can give you some more details, but it was reported to the council that we had a bad manufactured home out in Rose Park, and the city's been working with the state, who primarily regulates these items, And the state has indicated that they're going to be taking action. From my understanding, it's mostly an administrative action, that they'll get a fine for their act. The question then is, for the city, what do we want to do about it? Because we've still got this building sitting out there. Looking at the regulations, this building as it's sitting out there qualifies as a nuisance. And so if the remedy you're looking for is fix it, or or get it out of town, or the city will get it out of town and give you the bill, you know, we can pursue that, and it would be like these prior nuisances. They would get a notice telling them, it's a nuisance because you gotta fix these, you got so much time. If they don't, we would come back to the council, have you issue an order like you did last month. If it still isn't fixed, we go to court and get permission to, you know, go out there and just, you know, demolish it, move it, get rid of it. I like those options because eventually it means if it's not fixed, it's gone. Another alternative would be to cite them, you know, with a criminal violation. You know, you would still have the court process. I would assume that these folks would fight it. The reason I like the civil process and the nuisance process is that we're looking for an order that says we get to get rid of this. When you go through the criminal process, at the end, you get an order where the person has been sentenced to so much time in jail and they've gotten so much of a fine. What the court will do is they'll suspend some or all of the jail time in the sentence on conditions. And we can ask the judge to include getting rid of this thing or abating this thing. And the idea is that, well, you know, they got to do it or look at going to jail. But if they don't do it, then we got another court date to tell the court that they didn't do it, and we're asking them to, you know, enforce the rest of the sentence. You know, there's essentially a violation of the terms of the order.
This could, in essence, add 6 months to the process. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, none of it moves fast, unfortunately. I wish there was a way to kind of just hire a truck and go out there and do it. But you know, we gotta go jump through the hoops. Those are the alternatives. Like I say, personally, I like going the civil route because, like I say, we ask for the order that gives us the remedy we want, which is it goes. I think the criminal route, it's always nice to have the judge tell someone they're guilty of a crime and announce jail time, but they never really go to jail. You know, they suspend it. It seems like it's more of a long way around to me, it seems like a long way around to get to the remedy we want. We wanted to put those before the council to just see what your feelings are, if you've got a preference. If you would rather that we pursued this through a criminal route to try to resolve it on our end, or if you would like to go, or you're okay going the nuisance abatement route. Trying to get some feedback from the council on how you would like to see this resolved.
I think I agree with you, because if you go the criminal route, we could easily be sitting here next July, and we've been through failure to comply hearings in county court, and it's still sitting there. So I think the civil method is more efficient and probably quicker.
Any other observations?
Has there been any, forgive me if I've just forgotten all of it, but has there been any receptive communication on their part about any of this?
And again, I'll let Lisa speak to that, because she's been keeping a log. There's been multiple communications.
Is it all putting a wall up?
Pretty much. From Summarizing broadly, Lisa's told him you're in violation, you gotta do, A, B, C, and D. And they say, oh, no, the city doesn't have that authority, you can't tell me. And so then we went to another level of the state who backed Lisa up and said, yes, you have to do A, B, C, and D. And the guy still argued with, and now they went another level up into the state, who is apparently their enforcement section, who said, you have violated A, B, C, and D, and we're going to fine you. He's still arguing with the state. So, I mean, it's, I don't think he seems to be kind of dawning on him that, well, maybe these arguments aren't, and that maybe we know what we're talking about when we tell him he's got to do something. But
So the quickest route to go would probably be the nuisance violation.
I
Cleanest.
in general, I think it moves a little faster. But again, going to court, and nothing is quick these days with court hearings or any, they are allowing appearances, but now they're limited, and I mean, they're struggling with the same COVID issues, so everything just takes longer. But,
And the last time we discussed this, about a month ago, I drove by and looked at it. I drove by it today, and I don't see any perceptible changes whatsoever.
I'd say just go with the civil route then, or whatever that.
Nuisance violation route. Yeah. I concur with that.
okay, so like I say, the first step on that is we'll put together a notice, that will get served on him, telling him what he's got to do to correct the nuisance and a time limit. If he doesn't meet that, we'll schedule, like we did before, a notice and hearing, and it'll be back before the council and asking you to issue them to direct an order, telling him that, do it or else, and if he doesn't, then we can go to court. Okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
I would
Thank you.
assume that it's not a habitable property, having not been in it. If it appeared as though someone was living in it, is there any kind of immediate actions that can be taken that you're aware of? Or will we have to possibly involve Stearns County Public Health, or?
At this point, I don't think they've got any plans. I mean, because they started building on it and had to stop. So you're right, it's not, and I don't know who would live in there.
And I understand, it doesn't look like in any way, shape, or form, but if someone was to try, if it appeared as though someone was living in it, I don't think that would be a good situation from a health standpoint or a safety standpoint.
There's a do not occupy posted on the building, so they should not be able to completely occupy it. There's portions of walls that are missing and just plastic put up over it. Part of the electrical box cover is off. I don't think it's in a livable state at all.
It obviously has no utilities hooked up, electric, water, sewer, stuff like that, so. Right.
Thank you.
6C, Community Development Director Report.
The city's issued 41 building permits in 2015 are completed thus far. 17 were issued in first quarter, 24 second quarter. 32 are residential, 9 are commercial. That breaks down to 35 general, 5 mechanical, and 1 plumbing. That includes 1 new house permit. There's 2 garages larger than 200 square feet and 2 swimming pools. Total valuation of building permits is $770,938. There were 24 zoning permits, 24 right-of-way permits. Zoning permits include 6 fences, 9 sheds, 7 permits for paving, and 1 sign permit. planning. The Planning Commission considered an application from Dakota Mossman regarding a variance from the subdivision ordinance to allow a lot split instead of a plat. This was heard by the commission on June 29th. They unanimously recommended approval given the unique size, shape, and location of the lot and other factors. At the Planning Commission meeting at the end of this month, Munson Feed Mill is requesting a new 48-foot grain bin on their parcel on the west side of 3rd Avenue, and it's immediately northwest of their existing 60-foot diameter grain bin. And they're requesting a variance for primarily height. At the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission also considered zoning ordinance amendments. They're going to continue that discussion at the next meeting. The discussion included parking, loading, and storage, specifically regarding whether a gravel driveway should be permitted off of a gravel alley. They also are going to discuss the segment of the ordinance that requires building permits versus zoning permits for accessory structures. Our ordinance still says that cutoff is 125 square feet. State law says it should be 200 square feet. So we're going to make that consistent and do some associated updating to that. The signage portion of the ordinance, we're going to be working on the billboard sign section, which was not updated when the rest of the sign ordinance was updated in 2019. And we're also going to take a look at the swimming pool regulations. Regarding MATA, we had emergency revolving loan funds that have now been issued for 4 businesses, totaling $40,000. And there's one rehab forgivable commercial deferred loan for $5,000 that was issued on June 11th for the proposed daycare building. And I think, Colleen, you're going to talk further about the CARES money, so I'll let you take over on that end. Thank you.
Thanks. City engineer report. Mike, you still there?
Mike, are you on?
Yep, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we
Yep.
can hear you. So if you want to give your report, that would be great.
Okay, let me know if I'm screaming too loud. Okay, a couple of projects. I think you have my memo, but I'll just touch a little bit on the KC South Side progress. They were raising the berm. The last time I was checked there, I'm not sure if it's completed, but I will do a final on that berm height the next time I'm in town. There was an area in the southwest quadrant of that intersection that was holding some water. So we are removing some curb and the pedestrian ramp, and we'll be regrading that and repaving it to get the water to run to the curb and eliminate that potential hazard during the winter. So that's all I've got on that. With the 5th Street project, they are making some decent progress now. They do have the subcutting just about completed on 5th Street. Tomorrow they're supposed to complete the subcutting on 4th, and then they will be hauling gravel. Well, first of all, they have to put in the curb and gutter, which they're going to start on Tuesday. They'll be hauling gravel towards the end of next week, and then the schedule is that they'll be paving on July 27th and 28th. So they are on schedule to meet their deadline, and so far they're doing a good job. We did find the buried stump that was in the middle of the road, so we got that taken care of, and things are progressing quite well out there. A little bit slow, but they're doing a good job. So that's really about all I've got, unless you have any questions. Oh, the bridge project. The stream survey has been completed, so we'll be entering that data into the Corps of Engineers tool and getting that information off to the DNR and the Corps. So Colleen may have more of an update, but that's about what I know on the bridge project right now. So if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just got a quick one, Mike, about the bridge project, and I'm sure we've touched on it in the past, but let's say they somehow get a bonding bill passed for, is it too late to pass for next year?
So the bonding bill is in right now. Next
Okay.
year, it's an every other year cycle for
Right.
bonding.
Right.
So it wouldn't be until 23 that they would pass, or 2022 that they pass on
22,
the bonding bill.
that's the earliest we will have an opportunity to do the bridge.
No, there's actually separate funds that the county could get for bridge
Oh, okay.
dollars.
All right.
Yep. So their money is separate from what we request,
Okay.
we request.
Okay.
And so the county could very well get their money.
Allocated to.
Yep,
a
because they
project.
have had our project in their capital improvement fund for the last 5 years,
Okay.
so.
So Mike, I guess back to what I was getting at was, it says that project is like a month behind. And if
Yes.
I remember correctly, we have to be at a certain percent engineered before the county will enter that in their lineup of projects for their funding season. Where do we
Yeah.
sit as far as that goes?
Well, I think we're premature for calling it an approved project, but I mean, as we go along, we'll certainly be working very closely with Jody Tyke to get on that schedule. And if at some point, whether we don't get DNR permits or whatever, we'll keep Jody abreast of that and adjust accordingly.
Okay. I'm sure she wants to get this one out of her hair too, so. As soon as possible.
Yes, so,
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
okay, thank you.
City Administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually only have a couple items to address right now, and then the rest of the items that I'm going to be talking about are contained within the bulk of the agenda. So, 2 items just of note. Typically, we have the Stearns County Attorney come to the City Council meeting and present to you statistics from 2019 as well as their contract. Totally will take responsibility for this one. I think they mailed this to me probably in March or April, but with everything going on with COVID, it got set aside. So in your packet is the Stearns County Attorney's report. If you had a chance to look at that, it's just some basic information. And so that's kind of where that's at. So it's just really for your information only. And then the other item that I want you to be aware of is the State Demographer's Office came out with their 2019 population and household estimates. And they are currently 3,680 is the population estimate for 2019. That compared to 2000 is up a little bit. And then the household estimate is 1,336, which again is not up a lot. It's less than 1% from where it was at in 2000. The other thing that I do want to mention about that is if you have looked at the city's Facebook page or their website, also within all the residents within the community should have received a flyer that talks about making sure that you get your census information done. It is really critical that people fill out the census forms. That helps us in many, many ways, but it simply is very critical that people do that. So if you have noticed this week on our Facebook page, we've really been pushing that. There's been a new census information that has gone out every day regarding that. So I guess to the audience that may be listening, I would encourage anybody who has not filled out their census information to please go to that website and to fill it out. The information is on the city's website. It's also on our Facebook page. It is also www.2020.gov if you want to find that information. So if you do not fill it out, there will be people that will be coming door to door to ask you those questions. So again, it's everyone needs to count. We want to count everyone in our community. So that's what I have now, and then again, I have some other things on further down on the agenda.
Okay. Any questions, guys?
No, I'm fine.
All right, on to action items. 7A, on sale, 3.2% malt liquor license and wine license request, Martinez Meat and Grocery. Council to give consideration to request for a on sale, 3.2% malt liquor license and wine license be issued to Maria Delors of Martinez Meat and Grocery. A background investigation has been conducted by the PD, Maria Delors, and no records have been found. All right, we've gone through all the Minnesota statute regulated actions on this. So, any discussion on that?
I'd make a motion to approve if everything is within the parameters.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, first and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 7B, Warrior Boat Drainage and Utility Easement Vacation. We heard from Lisa about that during the public hearing. I don't have any issues with it, it's logical to me.
I'll make
You
a
guys
motion to
Make a
approve.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 7C, Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing. Let's see, on variance 6-2020-103 for Dakota Mossman. Lisa, do you want to give us a little summary of that?
Yes. Excuse me. This property is located in the northwest portion of the city, just right on the edge of the city. As you can see, it shows the proposed new lot. It's on the far west end of the property. On the far east end, it's existing lots that were platted back in the late 1800s. Under our current ordinance, if you're creating a lot that's under 5 acres in size, you would need to do a plat of the entire property. The applicants requested a variance from that requirement. A very narrow exception is being requested due to several factors unique to this property. The existing lot contains over about an acre of river bottom, the lot in full as it currently exists. The unique shape of the lot, due to the configuration of the river, the highway, the wooded non-farmable area that is created on one end, it makes sense to consider allowing one lot on this small unique triangle of land so that the remainder of the land can remain farmland. Also, the lot includes numerous previously separate parcels, including previously dedicated right-of-way from 1896, which has been combined into this one large parcel, although the parcels are separated by dedicated right-of-way. The Planning Commission considered this and other factors. They reviewed the 3 factors for granting variances, including reasonableness, unique circumstances, and neighborhood character, and they have recommended allowing a lot split to create a 3-acre lot.
And would this lot immediately become buildable?
It's one, yeah, it would be one buildable lot.
One buildable lot, okay.
Mhm. They're planning to just put one home on it.
Sure.
And the findings of fact detailing all of that is included in the staff report and in the resolution.
Findings of facts and stuff like that. If there's any discussion on that, I have none, it makes perfect sense to me, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You're gonna
Motion
start digging tonight,
carried.
Dakota? Getting out your hammer and sawing nails and stuff, or you're gonna?
We still gotta get the paperwork signed and stuff like that. Hopefully in the next couple of years.
Good. All right, 7D.
So the City of Melrose Public Utilities received from the United States Department of Energy Western Area Power Administration contract. That's a lot of legalese. Basically, we contract with Missouri River Energy Services, but we also get a portion of our power from Western Area Power Administration. And in 2012, we had signed a very long contract
It's a
with
30-year contract.
Yeah, 30-year contract with WAPA. But this basically gives MRES the ability to purchase power on our behalf from WAPA. So that's all it is. We had an attorney review it, and she had no issues with it.
If I remember correctly, the contract we signed in 2012 was way longer than this contract.
Way longer.
Yeah, so this is more of a intermediate.
Yeah, it's just a formality. It's really just, again, it's more of a technical type of thing. It gives MRES the power to purchase from Western, because we purchase 2 different ways from MRES. One direct, we purchase through MRES, and then we can, I believe some of our stuff comes directly from Western Power.
Is there any benefit to not signing it? I mean, is there?
I don't think so, because it's really through our bigger utility, which is MRES, that
Right.
co-op, and if their attorney's recommending that we sign it, I would say that we should probably sign it.
Yeah, because I did notice something in there about something with rate changes, and they have the right to, based on certain factors increase the rates and then to be passed on or whatever.
Yep.
And
So
I
I-
would guess Missouri River, at that point, if there was a drastic up or rate increase that we're getting from Western Area Power, I would assume that Missouri River at that point may look for a little less power from them and a little more from somebody that's more reasonable, so.
Yeah, there's quite a mix that they employ when they look at power for us.
I'm sure they're obviously after the best rates for everybody, so,
Mhm.
and they have the sizable
Yeah.
bargaining.
The one thing I will tell you that I just received a notice from MRES that WAPA, Western Area Power, just received a very high bond rating. So that bodes very well for us as well. So,
Okay.
and that's reflective in the members that are part of MRES. So that's good.
All right, action, council to consider approving the Western Area Power Administration contract. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd make a motion to allow the city administrator to be the city's signature in this contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Old business, 8A, tax forfeited property. This is the bad hill.
At your last meeting, you considered a request to reduce the assessment on 2 tax forfeited lots when they would be combined with the abutting lot. Staff inadvertently conveyed the dollar amount incorrectly. The motion is included in your packet. If you could just make the same motion again, but insert the correct dollar amount, we would greatly appreciate it.
Okay. I'm not gonna read it, I'm just gonna state. If I could get a motion as stated in the packet, so that I don't screw it up when I'm reading it.
I'll make a motion as stated.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, I got a motion, a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 8B, Shaggy's Towing update.
On October 21st, 2019, staff noted that there was a structure with a tarp cover on it at Shaggy's Towing. We sent notice to them at that point. They were given until November 13th to remove the structure. Staff then extended that deadline to June 15th, 2020. Obviously, we're now about a month past that. We did send notice to them on, let's see, it was on June 26th and again on July 8th. And those are included in your packet. The text of the July 8th is included in your packet. We also copied Collins Brothers Towing and received no response from either of them.
To add a little bit more to it, just so you guys are aware, I had talked to Chris Snyder, who is the owner of Shaggy's Towing, and explained to him the situation and the notifications that we had given to him, and asked sort of what his long-term plans were, and he said that his intent is to build a structure there, but because of COVID and other things, their revenues are down significantly, and so they're not in a position where they can do that at this time. I know that Mr. Schneider also had a conversation with Mayor Finken about this. Mayor Finken did want me to convey to the rest of the council that he did have that conversation with Mr. Schneider, at which time Chris showed him his plans for what their intent is for that property. And so Joe wanted me to express to the rest of the council that he would be willing to work with Mr. Schneider on a extended deadline so that he had an opportunity to build that.
And Mr. Schneider also reached out to me and explained the same
Okay.
thing, and he had, he indicated that he's working with lending institution, and he's been working with the lumberyard also in getting a plan together and get a site plan or whatever. And he said he would be pulling a permit to build a structure in the not too distant future. And he said he would really like to have a building up within 6 months to replace that structure, and that it was intended to be a temporary structure. That's what he conveyed to me.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we just want to
I think we want to table this
Table it
at
till
least
next
a month.
just to see
So we have
if there is any
full,
progress.
full council and mayor present, and just see at that time if Mr. Schneider can firm up a little bit more as to what his intentions are, the direction that he's going. It's not going to be carte blanche that we'll be talking about this at this time next year, but given the status of everybody and the economy for 3 months, driving by it, it's not like it's a flimsy, it looks like if you're not aware of what it looks like, it looks like a large type canopy that you'd see over a pontoon boat lift. It's fairly stout structure with shipping containers on either side of it. And granted, it doesn't meet the requirements. I'm not saying that it does meet the requirements, but let's see where we are from a month from now, and maybe Mr. Schneider can provide us with some more details, maybe a little firmer timeline.
Right. Sounds good. So I guess we'll, by consensus, just table this? Okay. 8C, Ars Auto update.
Staff's been working with Ars Auto for about the last 18 months on, or excuse me, just shy of 2 years. It'll be 2 years in November, on getting their site in conformance with their conditional use permit. They are definitely making progress in that regard. They have put landscape planters in where they're to be required to be placed, but they haven't yet put in anything in the planters, so they're just simply empty flower pots at this point. The other issues that remain is that the area where the vehicles for sale are parked still has crushed granite that is planned to be replaced with crushed bituminous at the end of this summer. Staff asked for a couple of measurable items, including a contract, pulling a zoning permit for the changing of the materials, and then also removal of the granite chips in preparation for doing that. And those steps have not occurred. Staff's given quite a few extensions now for this, and Mr. Arsenault is wanting to proceed with adding an accessory structure in the northwest portion of his lot. And so this is the point where typically the city has the ability to not authorize issuance of a building permit until the site is in conformance with the regulations as they currently stand. Staff did issue a building permit for the structure back in November that had a criteria that the structure being, or that the property be in compliance by, I believe it was May 15th. Obviously that date has come and passed, and the site is not yet fully in compliance. So that building permit is not valid until it either comes into compliance or the city council says, go ahead and allow him to continue as proposed. Further, he's requesting at this point to increase the size of that structure, and that also falls under kind of that same criteria. Staff's unwilling to issue a permit at this point, just given the number of extensions that have already come and passed. So it would require council to say that it's okay to proceed if that's what you would like, or to require him to bring the site into compliance prior to getting a permit. At this point, you know, there's just a couple issues remaining, and then the other one is putting the dumpster in a building, which obviously will be resolved once he puts his building up. So we're not as concerned, obviously, about that at this point.
Putting the building up will fix an issue.
Dumpster, correct.
So I don't see why we would hold up a building permit if he's going to be fixing one of the issues with that. That's just, you know, logical thinking, right? Granted, there's a couple other issues outstanding.
There's the landscaping and the paving underneath the cars for sale.
Car sales. And I think I noticed yesterday, I think the cars have been pulled off of that, correct?
Correct. Today, they weren't
today.
parked
They
on
weren't
the
parked
granite.
on it.
Although you gotta put a little more water on those flowers, brother, because they ain't coming very well.
Okay, about the flowers, I know that takes planning on it, but hate to throw this out there, but would fake plastic flowers count? Because you don't have to water them, they look nice. Would that qualify to have something in the flower pots?
It cleans.
What's that?
If I may,
Yeah.
Tony, one of the things, and I had met with Joe out on his site, and through this process originally, there was an 8-foot landscape buffer that had to go in there. And over the period of the 2 years that we've been working with Joe, one of the things that did occur is there is a trail there. There's a walking, biking trail that actually
Right.
is in there. And so we basically said to him, look, we're just saying, put something that,
A barrier. Something
Some
that
sort of a
separates
barrier.
So everybody knows not to
Yeah.
back onto the sidewalk.
exactly.
Whatever.
And that's really where we had left it with him.
Right.
So we were very liberal in terms of what our interpretation of what a landscaping was. And so last conversation I had with Joe, and I know Lisa talked to him, well, maybe a really cost-effective solution for you is put up, those flower pots,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. One of his neighbors has, I believe it's 3 or 4 feet of rock, so it's the trail, it's
Yep.
rock, and then they park beyond that.
Right.
There's 2 reasons for us wanting that. Number one, typically you will want the landscape area, which is 8 feet, for the reasons you just described. You don't want people backing over the curb. There's different reasons for having that. In this case, because we have a trail right there, it's for the safety of the people that are on the trail. Plus, it's for Mr. Arsenault's shop itself, making sure that his folks, stay far enough away from where people may be utilizing that trail. So we
Yeah.
said we have to have something there. And we worked with him to say, hey, we're willing to do this. But I don't think, it has to be by definition some sort of landscaping. I don't think we're really opposed to him putting fake flowers, but
Well, I'm just thinking.
You know what I
something
mean?
quick that you can throw in there to make it look like it's, being addressed or whatever.
Right.
And maybe.
in the
'cause
future,
obviously
if he
half
wants
the
to.
growing, half the growing season is over now.
Right.
I don't know if that's something that.
And,
Thanks, Brad.
I understand, here again, business and stuff, and it probably wasn't real good for the last 3 months. But I'm also pretty sure when I drove by on Monday of this week, there were a couple cars on the west side that were parked off of the pavement onto the grass. But the cars on the east side, the for sale cars, were parked on the granite fines on Monday.
What was that?
I believe that the cars that were for sale were parked on the granite fines on Monday of this week. Okay, so tonight we're discussing it, and when I drive by today, everything with the exception of something in the flower pots is pretty much up to standard. So you're kind of pushing it to the very edge is what I'm looking at, Today it looks about as good as it probably has, and with something in the flower pots, we really wouldn't be able to pitch much of a squawk.
And my issue that has been with the flower pots is I've had so many different answers. I have the letter that Mike Brutzer signed that's saying if I put curb stops in there, that would be considered my buffer strip. Like that would be okay. But then after I put those out there, then I was informed by someone else that I can't do that. So it's just been up in the air on so many different, you can do this, and then I do that, and then no, you can't do that. And then that's why I was pushing off, and the planters took that long.
And I would assume that those wooden, and they look nice, those wooden large flower containers or landscape containers probably went in the last week.
2 weeks ago or something. Yeah.
I actually remember the discussion of the curb stops, and that's why it was kind of, I haven't noticed that they weren't there. But I do remember that discussion, that the curb stops were supposed to be adequate.
And the curb stops, I think, were kind of a stopgap measure, but the actual approved conditional use permit says that from July 1st, 2019, moving forward until such time as the parking lot is modified to allow for a more permanent landscape buffer, unless the ordinance is modified to remove the landscaping buffer requirement, landscape planters at a minimum of 1 landscape planter at least 2 feet wide, at least 1 centered in front of each parking space shall be installed and maintained from May 1st to October 31st each year. So I don't think it's a matter of the things changing since July 1st.
And
of
Mr. Arsenal, I'm not
2019.
accusing you of anything, but it just seems like it's an 11th hour issue. I'm here to the point where I want to build this shed, which I think is a good thing. You can put your your extra parts and stuff in there. I'm sure you need the room and, you know, your dumpster and stuff. It's a nice looking shed, but it's kind of a, you know what I'm saying? Kind of an 11th hour, we're right at the deadline kind of deal.
I
And
was honestly waiting until, because the way I understood it from the last council meeting was that I had until, you know, I parked my vehicles on there until I was gonna wait till the 16th. That is today.
Okay.
And I did that, and now, just like the conditional use permit says, I won't park on it until it's crushed tar instead of crushed concrete. And now.
And you've
how
got-
much glue is that gonna throw in it? That's why I haven't sent the permit in for doing the tar. Until they tear up 94, they said they don't know how it's gonna tear up. They said it might be fine and it might be nice, crushed, but he said it could come up with big chunks. And I don't want it, it's gonna be big nasty chunks and I'm not getting anything. So I was waiting until they knew how it was tearing up to put it down, otherwise I'm gonna cement it. But I won't tell you I'm gonna cement it, because then I'll send out the rule backwards and through it to
so if we were to proceed with letting you put up the garage, are we going to see something in our flower pots out there in the next week or so, or?
after, now, would fake ones work? Because that was another question. I didn't know that they needed to be soiled, because like Tony said, I'm not a gardener, I'm not gonna go in
No,
water.
and we're not expecting you to be.
I just don't think it makes sense to put anything real in there, because they'll be dead, and that's, you know,
Right.
this will just put something
Yeah.
nice.
I don't know, you get some pretty nice looking fake flowers. I mean, you know,
And if there's some sort of a fake tree, you could leave it out there all year long, you know?
And again, the whole point of why I talked to Joe and the reason behind him having to put this here, originally, you have to remember, we've been dealing with Joe for a couple of years on this. And when I came on board and I had talked to him, it's because that trail's there. And it's really, again, a protection for the people who are on the trail, as well as a protection for his folks if they park cars or whatever over there.
and I understand the trail issue. That's
Yep.
kind of a, you know, obviously nobody should be able to park on a sidewalk or
Mm-hmm.
on a designated trail. That I fully understand. And on the flip side, I like to look at the other side also. I'm sure you work a lot of hours in a day. You're a hardworking businessman. You've put up a nice shed there, a nice facility there. If we can come to some type of agreeable solution where everybody's not just mad at each other,
What's,
that would be the ideal solution. So if we can come up with some way to allow either the planters with fake flowers to keep cars off the trail there, and I don't know, I know the conditional use permit says one thing, but I think when you're dealing with businesses, especially in tough times, I think we need to be a little bit understanding from where they're coming from also. And, because I tell you, getting building permits to do things nowadays has gotten, the last 10, 20 years, has gotten extremely complicated. And codes are difficult to interpret, coming up with site plans to do things, and, you know, when you get the code thrown at you and said, here, this is what you have to meet, then, you know, and I know that the conditional use permit was gone through, site plan was done. It always looks good on paper, but when you get down to actually building the facility and using the facility, sometimes it doesn't quite work as well. And you probably ran out of room in the front of the building near the road, right? And that's why you've kind of been pushing limits on that.
what's the consequence if Joe didn't want a new building, what would the city do?
Ask that again, I'm sorry.
So what's the consequence right now we're not giving him a permit as kind of the consequence for not having his other things done. But if he didn't want a new building and he needs to put a fake plant by the road yet, what would be that step? Because I feel like, Tony, we shouldn't hold up a building permit.
Right.
We should let that, because that's gonna resolve an issue, plus
Right.
if he needs that building to make money, and I'm assuming money is part of the tar, the pots, you know what I mean, that all takes money to fix problems too, so.
So ultimately, for any conditional use permit that's not meeting the conditions, the city can go through a hearing process to revoke the conditional use permit. Obviously, that's worst case scenario and we never want to go there. So this point in the road, staff's obviously been very interested in working with him and trying to move this along as much as we could. And it's just because it's at this point where he needs a permit, that we feel that it's important to bring the city council into the discussion and to say yes or no. Staff obviously wants to see this project move forward and have him continue to be a successful and viable business in the community. So that's not the issue. It's just simply that
Right.
we're at this point of discussion, and at this juncture, this needs to be a council decision. It's not something that staff really can say yes or no on it. It really does need to be decided by the
Right.
council. as an
Then I'm sure if we
administrative
found
decision.
out that you issued a building permit, all these outstanding issues were happening, and we weren't informed that there was a building permit,
It would be the
that
other
we
side
could
of it.
withhold, that somebody on the council or mayor may be upset about that, so. More information is always better than not enough, so. Yeah. But I think the building permit is fine to issue if it's gonna
Okay.
address an issue. That's my,
Is
I
that
would
the
say issue
consensus?
the permit and then just set up a time to get the other things done. I mean,
Right.
if the bituminous is going on the crushed granite, I wouldn't tear the granite out till the bituminous is ready, but maybe he could get a date on that, so it's not just like sometime, you know what I mean? And
right,
then
yeah.
Because
If you
if
give
that
us-
project falls through, then you'd have to just buy a couple loads somewhere else, right? That's kind of
They're
the,
starting to tear 94 on July 27th, so on 25th, 26th, I planned on taking out all the granite and then for the whole length of that east side of the building where we can park the cars. Like you said, I didn't want to be tore up dirt, on the
Right.
building. And then on that 27th or whatever, once they start taking out holes, we figure out if it's good between this bit, and how it goes up. So again, I don't go up or down, it's just big chunks. It'll look bad, it's not worth all snow on in the winter, so it's worth. Then at that time, then I would do cement instead, which
Okay.
everything needs to be done in order to cement to it, stop throwing corners.
Right. Do you think by winter you'd have the, whatever, by winter, do you think you'd have whatever
Yeah,
solution?
This is, because once I tear that up, I'm gonna do it 25th, just before.
Right.
So I don't wanna hold them up, they're doing me a favor by bringing me this crushed granite, or crushed.
Asphalt, yeah.
Yep. And, so I'm gonna be ready waiting for them. If it is bad, then
Yeah.
I'll go for them, and then we'll cement. If it's good,
Okay.
it's gonna.
And with concrete, this one would require a $15 permit to do,
It would, regardless, he'll need a
Okay.
permit for doing driveway work.
okay. So just want to make sure
If I have
everybody,
a permit there, I literally just didn't turn it in because I wanted to figure out.
What exactly
It's
you're
gonna
doing.
change if I put cement down, if I say I'm putting crushed tar, I
Right.
put cement instead of.
could you put either, one or the other, depending on the
Mhm.
permit, so that whichever
Yep.
way it goes, it's ready to go?
Yep,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
that'd be fine.
Sound good?
Works for me. We need a motion on that, please.
Oh,
Well, I can buy into this shed, because it's gonna help your business. It's gonna improve the professional area.
right.
And this is just me personally. We're giving an inch, we're not taking a mile. Okay? Taking, as a gentleman and as a business owner, you say you're gonna do something, then I guess I'm expecting you to get it done without a whole bunch of crowding from the city and, and back and forth. So I think we've got an understanding now. Am I correct?
You are.
Okay, very good. And then I can buy into this shed, but like I say, we're giving an inch, we're not taking a mile.
Have fun.
Okay, action item.
Is there a motion?
Yep.
Patty would like a motion on that issue.
I'll make a
On the
motion.
shed. Yeah, I was just reading that, action item. Council to consider.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. The council to consider if the permit should be issued to Mr. Arsenal for a shed. Do I have a motion to go ahead with the building permit?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, thanks, Joe. Yep. Thanks, Lisa. 8D, Rose Park update.
I think you kind of
I
had
think we kinda hashed
a
that
pretty good
over.
overview. I can tell you that we have a 30-ish page document that highlights all of the violations, photographically outlines what's happened.
Over the
We've kept
years.
really good records.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we will continue to pursue that.
Okay, no motion on that. That was just an update. Okay. 8E, Melrose Police Department has been notified that Leeds will no longer accept stray or abandoned animals. Police Chief Mouse has been looking at other locations that would take these animals.
Yes, I'll give you guys a brief history. In May, we got a phone call from the vet clinic saying that the owners decided they're no longer going to be doing strays. Part of it, I think, is related to the COVID situation. They shut down clinics, rotated docs, and those sorts of things. And maybe realized at that point that having the extra help on hands, nights, and weekends was a good cost-saving measure, as well as maybe they couldn't get people to do that work anymore. I don't know the complete ideas, but ourselves, Sauk Center, Albany, and Stearns County Sheriff's Office brought our dogs to the Melrose facility. We generally had priority as far as when the kennel was getting full and whatever else they're holding for Melrose dogs, but that wasn't always the case. So it worked out well for in the 19 years I've been here, for sure, if not longer, obviously. So we started looking around at other vet services that may or may not do this, doggy daycares, private, commercial, as well as kennels in general. At this point, those were limited services. Some of them got back to us right away saying, no, we're not going to, and then some of them it was late June before we got any good answers. So what we've done is checked in with Humane Societies as well. St. Cloud says, no, we're not taking anybody because they have a contract with the city of St. Cloud, as well as they just take in too many animals, whatever else. Alexandria has some consideration related to it. They contract with the city of Alexandria. Sauk Center now has a contract with them because of this. They're concerned about space issues as well, can't guarantee us spots, but they're willing to work with us, kind of on a case-by-case basis, which limits on how we can continue to run, the dog catching service, really. So we started looking at is, what if the city started doing it on our own? How does this look? What does it look like? The League of Minnesota Cities follows and recommends following the guidelines of the Animal Welfare Care Act. And this is what the kennels and doggy daycares follow. The kennels specifically really work with this because they need to have an indoor facility, which is part of the act. You need to have something that's climate controlled, or at least comfortable, is how it says. So you're looking at heating and cooling. So we need something on an indoor basis. They also recommend having an outdoor kennel of some sort for exercise, as well as you have somewhere to put the animals in while you're cleaning kennels and those sorts of things. So when you start looking into what the Animal Care Act says, it gets a bit concerning for a city to operate with the duties we already do. So some of the things is a minimum 8 hours of light for indoor kennels. Check with the current city buildings. We do have some space down at wastewater, but there's not a single window in it. There's no ventilation in it. So you have to be concerned about odors, air quality, moisture, all those sorts of things. Food every 24 hours. At one point, give the dog some food. Fresh water every 8 hours. Exercise for 20 to 30 minutes every 8 hours. So some of the areas of concern with that is consistency. So you're already taking an animal out of its normal environment. You're putting it into a space that it's not used to. The kennels and the doggy daycares are obviously saying, well, you need to have some sort of routine and consistency while they're staying there, because that makes them a little less nervous and things go a little bit better. If it's going to be an outdoor kennel, which, like I said, they're recommending indoor, you have probably barking issues, you're going to have some digging issues, you might also have some animals pacing back and forth, which could become a nuisance to the neighbors, as well as the concern for the care of the dog or the overall health of the dog if it starts to get that nervous or that concerned. We looked into then, what do we all need to do this? We'd probably need 3 kennels, 2 indoors, so you could either have enough for 2 dogs, as well as maybe rotate an outdoor kennel or a run of some sort so they could exercise. I don't know that we'd be taking them on, joyful walks throughout the city 3 times a day, but they do need some sort of exercise, or that's what's required under the act. So that's some things that we'd have to be concerned about. And then, of course, there's some disinfecting sprays, bowls, dog food, those sorts of things. And a lot of the reason that we can't just talk to a kennel or doggy daycare is because we're bringing in strays that with unknown vaccination histories, rabies being one of them, distemper, which is the kennel cough, the dog flu, very contagious amongst dogs and very concerning for client dogs that they would have. So none of these other facilities have quarantine areas where they can say, okay, here's our stray area and here's the rest of our client animals. So it'd be added expenses for them if they wish to take this on, as well as it could be something that, even if the city proposed it, we'd still be paying the same dollars for kennels of some sort to an outside facility and those sorts of things. Some stuff that we looked at that maybe benefits is we could charge daily fees for keeping the dogs. The vet clinic here in Melrose was charging $16 a night or a day to store the animals. 15 to 20 is pretty common for those sorts of things, so that there'd be some financial benefit on that side. We would also then be able to guarantee that people are coming in to pick up their animal to have their vaccinations as well as get their city license. Currently, a lot of owners would go up to the vet clinic and say, okay, you need to get a city license now, that's part of the requirements. Yep, I'll go do that one as soon as I leave here. And they walk out with their animal, they never showed up here. Those sorts of things. So those were things we weren't necessarily able to follow up on because we didn't know when they were being released all the time, as well as the owners weren't taking those responsibilities either. We have some concerns with working with Alexandria, partially just because you pick up a dog. If it's on times when they're not open, you hold the dog either way. When they are open, then you got to make a trip to Alexandria and come back. City of Sauk Center, they work with their public works department to go and do that. I did talk with Gary. It's more duties put onto his department, more duties put onto ours. Is it financially viable to be running a truck or a squad car up to Alexandria, as well as our hourly rate of pay to go and do this? And that's a concern I have, as well as with storage fees. Say we go on the high end at $20. If we're looking at getting close to the recommendations they're talking about as far as the cleaning, the exercise, all those sorts of things, we don't get anywhere near an hourly rate by $20 a day. $20 a day isn't even the base rate for our incoming officers. So.
And even if you sit on it for 5 days and you have to euthanize it, then you're nothing.
Right. And that's, so state law does say we have to keep it for 5 days before we could bring it to Humane Society or before we could adopt it out. Now with that, we talked with the vet clinic, and what they had on hand right away and easily available is we've had 12 dogs, from January until June. 2 of those were just at the end when we were saying, well, we're just not going to bring them up there anymore because they're going to be shutting down pretty soon for us anyway. We found the owners back with those through social media, which worked out pretty well. But we did have 2 dogs that stayed the full 10 days, which is what our policy says before they can be euthanized or adopted out. So 5 days by state law, but we have a policy saying, okay, you can hold it. We want you to hold it for 10 before any euthanization happens or before it can be adopted. So those 2 were held for the full 10 days. They were then adopted out or rehomed. We had 1 at 3 days, 1 at 2 days, and then the remaining 6 were either that very same day or the next day they got rid of. So the hope is always that very same day, okay, yeah, we didn't quite recognize that this was Fluffy and whatever else, we can get Fluffy right back. But without collars, tags, and those sorts of things, we can't make those guarantees. So those are some of the things we looked at when we were working on all of this. Areas of concerns, obviously, is the consistency with all this. Gary's department, they're in sporadically in the winter for plowing snow. The parks guys are in on the weekend, but they come in, they do their duties throughout the parks, and they're not there the rest of the day. Water, wastewater, same thing. They check their pumps, they check their wells, and they're out for the rest of the day. Electric is only on an on-call basis kind of thing. We are the only department that's there 24 hours a day, but we can't guarantee we're going to be able to do this work on a consistent basis. And that's where I have concerns. I don't think it's fair to the animal that if we get a call and the expectation was that the night car was supposed to, let out at 6 o'clock and the night car gets called, that very well takes later into the evening that this dog now sat in its own mess or anything else for a period of time that maybe isn't acceptable. There's some concerns with that, as well as, like I said, having a space for all these animals to go. The proper water, the draining, all those sorts of things. We don't have a facility or a place in our current facilities that allows for this. It doesn't have a drain, so we can't necessarily clean up after the animal properly.
Doesn't Sergeant Nick Nicky have a pretty good-sized backyard?
You would. So that's why Colleen and I talked, is there maybe we throw out an ad saying, hey, this is, whatever else. We looked at private, all the doggy daycares, so it'd have to be somebody that just basically says, okay, this is something I'm going to do as a side job or a hobby. I don't know.
We also, just for you guys' information, I did talk to David with Leadstone. He was not aware that this was happening, but he did say that he would pass the information along to the other side of that group, which is the veterinary side. So I did ask that Dr. Overby, thank you, give me a call. So I'm hoping to talk to her. What we're hoping to do is maybe if we are able to enter into a contract with them on, it's a guaranteed monthly fee or something, that they may reconsider housing just Melrose dogs. I'm not saying we're gonna have any luck with that, but that is something that I would like to consider.
And you're thinking that there's a possibility somebody within a mile to 3 miles of town has a barn or a shed that they're not using and could fence and might be interested in being a dog boarding place?
Well, and that was where when we looked to the doggy daycares and the kennels, the ones that, you know, have the heart and the passion for this sort of thing, and they didn't necessarily jump up and say, yeah, absolutely, we'll see you tomorrow. That's where it got concerning that we might not be able to find anybody. I did talk with a few people that have done adoption or fostering services, and their concern is also bringing in animals that don't have the correct shots and those sorts of things, as well as how does the fostering process go after the 5-day minimum? Is it now my dog to get rid of? Is it the city's dog to get rid of? What do we do with it? And those are questions we haven't gotten answered yet, but it's been a limited response as far as on a positive side of things. And just a note, I guess we did look into kennels, dog control. It was about $2,500 is what we'd need to put into getting established with all of this.
Maybe one of this, but have we thrown something on our Facebook page saying, hey, if we're running into an issue finding homes for temporary homes for dogs, cats, for 5 to 10 days, how many people would be willing to sign up on Facebook or whatever and say, yeah, I don't mind taking a dog for 5 days or whatever. Have a pool of people, local people, because there's a lot of people out there that one of my neighbors does. They take in dogs, foster care for dogs and stuff temporarily, but I don't know if that's an option. See if we can get 10 people in the community that would be willing to just take a dog for 5 days, 10 days, or whatever. I don't know, have it local. So that,
yeah, and that's what I was just kind of referring to
Yeah.
is how does then the surrender process work? Is the city then
Yeah.
part of the adoption process? Or,
the
you know,
city liable in case.
Right,
Yeah,
and
I
then
can see
is
a
there any-
stipend for the
My concern is
food and stuff,
liability.
but
I know.
but the insurance, if they, get bit, then
Right.
they gotta go through rabies vaccinations,
Right.
because we don't know for
There would have to
sure.
be paperwork involved and all kinds of agreements and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if it was as simple as-
more complicated than it should be.
Yeah, if it was as simple as putting a kennel right outside the police department door and calling it good,
Right.
our officers would probably be fine with that. You come and go
Treat
throughout
out
the night
there.
and those sorts of things. The problem is that when you get a short-haired dog in the winter, now we only have an outdoor kennel, or we have a long-haired dog. A couple weeks ago, and we had 90s with dew points in the 70s. What are we really providing a service, or are we just holding on to animals until whenever? The hope would be is that would maybe push people to get licensing, but we haven't seen that with the current system, and I don't know that it helps or hurts for us to be part of it. We're willing to do this to an extent as far as the police department side. We just can't make promises, and we don't feel that's fair to what this guidelines that the League of Minnesota City had out, which I wasn't aware of until I started looking at this stuff, as well as it's not fair to the animal. If you get, if I pick up your dog and all of a sudden it comes back in a condition that it didn't leave the house with, a few hours later, it'd probably be a pretty big frustration. So
And I
we're
don't-
a
and I
bit
don't-
leery on all of this.
And I don't believe that the Main Street city maintenance area would be an option, because if you get a barker and it barks all night, who are they gonna call? They're gonna call the police, and it's like, well, it's our dog, for now. Wastewater possibly, but here again, like you say, we're almost erecting some sort of a shed and insulating it for the cold months, and then your fenced run area, your outdoor area, and somebody's gotta attend to one or more critters every day that there's something in there.
So when this all started, we did talk with the other departments, and like I said, Sock Center, they pick them up, but then the Public Works takes care of the rest of it. Stearns County said we're going all the way to St. Cloud with ours, so even if they pick it up in Belgrade, they're going all the way across county with their dog. Albany has taken the stance that if it doesn't have city tags, it's going to continue to run. If it's a dangerous dog or a potentially dangerous dog or it's vicious, obviously we have different criteria for that, but they said it's not in our job duties really to be dog catchers, and yes and no. I mean, I see both sides of it.
I can see, I fully understand. If it's a dangerous dog, obviously.
Yeah,
you
different
have
story.
a responsibility to take care of
Yeah.
something like that, but, it's, like you said, fluffy running along the street.
And you get,
I've seen plenty of them and not need a phone call, just they'll make their way back home eventually. They're just
Right.
out for a walk type of thing.
But they're dancing around out in the middle of South Second Avenue at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, looking like, where am I? You know, you gotta do something, otherwise you scoop up the carcass in an hour once it gets clubbed, you know,
Right.
so.
It shouldn't be this complicated.
It shouldn't be, but
Unfortunately.
when
The
you
one
start,
thing we
you
did
start
talk
the
about,
research.
Chief and I did talk about, one of the things that we could do that actually it doesn't cost a lot is to get a chip reader. That way, if it's got a chip, maybe it got off its collar or something happened where it was able to tear its collar off, but if it's got a chip, then at least the chip can get read.
If they, because some do.
And, yep, some do. Most times, the vets recommend that, and so most dogs are chipped that are, you know, go in for their regular visits. And so if we had a chip reader, that would make it a
To
little bit
identif-
simpler from the
identify the owner.
standpoint that we could identify the owner, as long as the information's updated, we hope. Then at least we can track them down that way and, you know, get the dog back to where they need to be. But, you know, like Craig and I were talking, 8 out of 10 maybe, we know who the owners are, they know where these dogs belong type of thing. But it's the, you know, the 1/3 that you get every year that there's no chip, no tags, nothing, and they're running around, you know, maybe getting into somebody's garbage or tearing up somebody's flowers, and, you know, we're getting complaints because the residents are calling us. And yeah, it's unfortunately, like Chief said, it would be nice if it were just a very simple, we'll throw up a kennel at wastewater and be done with it.
Well, what would happen if we do that?
And you have to charge enough money to, I don't
Yeah,
know if
well,
we'd
I'm
ever
just
make our
saying
costs back.
if we end up having no options, I mean,
Right.
we really don't want to be running Alec every time we pick up a cat or a dog, right? So-
Cats are now being excluded from our
Yeah,
our
cats we
policy
don't
and
pick
ordinance
up.
for
Okay,
pickup.
good.
Unless they're wearing a collar with their city tag on.
Right.
Yeah, but if they have a tag, we'll get them to their owner, but otherwise, because cats are kind of a different, the problem is there's a lot more density of them out and about. They tend to, you know, cats just,
Yeah,
you know.
they're out and about a lot. So.
They're out and about a lot, so it would be very difficult to do that.
Right.
And somewhere in the city of Melrose, there's a cat bar, and in the bathroom in that cat bar, my address, my wife's name, you come here, you'll get fed like a king. We've got stray cats all over, and she feeds them, so.
It's on the web, I've seen it.
So I don't know. We'll probably wait till we hear from Leadstone, get a response from them,
Yep.
see if they have any. Otherwise,
I think we'd look into that, and then also, I guess, I would visit with the wastewater supervisor that if we do end up constructing something down there, that we have in mind possible expansion, so we don't put something up and then a year later have to either move it or change because of, you know,
Yeah.
work being done
we
on
can
it.
mow- shouldn't be more than a 10 by 12 temporary storage shed, I wouldn't think, with maybe some fencing around it or something. Right?
Yeah, Tim was gonna slide us into a building that had a bunch of pipes. I don't know what it's all there. We stored a bunch of bikes in at one point, so it was adequate size. It just doesn't have ventilation, proper lighting. So I mean, can you throw a Schaefer fan in there for ventilation? Probably, you know, and
Right.
maybe a small window.
Sure, there's a decent looking fish house we could pick up that lights on it, windows that open, stuff like that.
So-
You know, honestly, that'd be a pretty nice dog house.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not that our department's against it. It's
Yeah.
just for the work that we didn't realize how much the vet clinic actually was doing on our behalf or for the service for the citizens or these dog owners. It was surprising to see once you start looking into it. So they're $16 a day they were charging. They earn their money, that's for sure.
The other thing that we talked about was giving, because right now, if you pick up somebody's dog, they don't pay anything other than the boarding charge for, or they didn't pay anything other than the boarding charge at that clinic.
Right.
You know, incentivize them for a higher fine, because right now I think it's after the third time you pick it up, it's $50 or something. What if the first time that you pick this dog up, you charge them right away? Alexandria, for example, it's $75 every time they pick up a dog, plus it's an additional $15 a day to have it boarded.
We still run into where we're gonna put it though.
Right, exactly.
And our dog running at large citation is $50 for the first 3 violations, jumps to $100 for the next 3, and then at the 7th one, we revoke your license. So essentially, you can't have the animal anymore in town. But it's rare that the ones that license have
that
those
issue.
issues because they care enough to license their pet and keep an eye on it.
Are you looking for anything from us?
Well, it's part of it is just to keep you informed, and we'll continue to work with the vet clinic and see what we can come up with that. But I don't know that we may need some direction, or may need to just step forward and do these things. Like I said, my area concern is the consistency for any of the departments, especially ours, to do this correctly. And I don't know what ramifications that has if we have an animal rights group saying that you're not doing the proper exercise for your kennel dogs, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and
You know, that's the
I think at
extremes,
that
but-
point, if you get an animal rights group in here, we just say, okay, we're not picking any of them up then, unless they are a threat to the public. And then see what the reaction is, because, you know, if you let it, do you want us to care for them in our fashion, or just let them go? It's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, it's a little more complicated than it should be, but keep us informed.
Thank you.
Good luck with that.
So at this point, I believe, unless we can't find city tags, we'll probably be just allowing dogs to continue to run until we can get an answer from the vet clinic, or until,
And if anybody's watching or watched the council meeting has a great idea, feel free to share it. You know, there might be somebody that picks up on it or reads the article that Carol's gonna put in the paper about it that wants to help out,
And I'm assuming that with all the spare time you have, that you're gonna kind of start trying to formulate some sort of a plan, possibly to wastewater treatment plant that, if necessary, we can implement in a
and we can
couple of
try
months.
the idea of posting, see if there's community members that would be willing to figure out the liability side, I guess, when it's all said and
That's
done,
my
kind of thing.
concern, is liability.
It's probably more their homeowner situation than anything in reality, but
I guess, you know, as soon as they sign the paper, I'm taking all responsibility for this animal. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, that should put the liability on them, correct? I mean, you go buy a dog from some private homeowner and you bring it home and it bites you, you really can't sue the person that you bought it from.
Picks up something in your kennel, and now it's your fault, the city's responsible for vet bills or something. I mean, it's a tough situation, and it's definitely got, there is insurance involved, because they're used to addressing that on a regular basis. Cities leading in services, it's, I've talked to the league, and said that insurance, we have to, you know, get tweaked to our coverage if we're gonna start the animals. Somebody would be upset. They love their pet, and not give a license and keep that for the city.
Bonding bill update?
Enough on that subject?
I think so.
All right. New business. Let's see, hang on. Where were we? 9A.
Under old business still, Tony, we're on the
Are we?
bonding bill, which is
Bonding
8F.
bill,
Yep.
8F.
So at this time, there's not been a final bill brought forth regarding, the session isn't completed, but the news that we currently have is both in the Senate version and the House version of the bonding bill. There is $3.5 million that has been allocated to the city of Melrose for the wastewater treatment facility upgrades. This is $2.25 million short of the request that was made, but we are working through changes to see what we can cut from the project itself, and we may have other sources of funding that we're going to be looking at. So it is something that the PUC will be discussing at their regular meeting on Monday. So I'll keep you apprised of that, but that's what we know at this time. There's no action that is required. I just wanted you to be aware of where we were at in that process.
Okay. New business, 9A, City Administrator Winter received a request from the Senior Center Board to reopen the Senior Center.
So when the city center offices closed on March 16th, the senior center, being part of the city center building, was closed as well. We reopened city center on June 1st. However, the senior center was not reopened at that time, and that was based on the guidance from the state of Minnesota. The most recent guidance that we have from the state talks specifically about assisted living facilities and other types of facilities, but it doesn't address senior centers that may be housed inside other buildings, such as a public building like what we have. So I was talking to several of my colleagues in the area, and there are several of them that are looking to open their senior centers on a limited basis, and I have been requested to bring this before the council because the senior center board would like us to consider allowing them to utilize their senior center downstairs. I will tell you that there was deep cleaning that was done in that senior center right after we had closed down the offices. It has been repainted, and there was some significant electrical work that had to be done, and that has all been done and upgraded in that particular part of the building. So we currently operate under a COVID-19 preparedness plan for staff that are here. And so I would recommend that if you were going to be looking at opening the senior center back up, that it would have to follow under the same guidelines that we have to have for a preparedness plan for the staff that is here, which means that they cannot have more than 10 people at a time be down there. There's extra cleaning that has to happen. There's health screening questions that would have to be asked, that type of thing. Also, if there is a way, and this might be, Scott's might have to help us or help us with this, but I would say that we would want some sort of a contract or an agreement that basically says that they hold the city harmless if a senior were to contract COVID. So that's where I'm at with it. And I told Ms. Pullman, who's the president of the senior center, that I would bring it forth to the council to make a decision.
Do you have any idea, are they thinking like getting together for meals, card playing, any idea what?
The three main pushes that they are looking for is there two gentlemen that come in and play pool twice a day. There is an exercise group that comes in. They all have their own area. They all have their own weights. They have everything. Their names are labeled on their own things. So I believe they exercise 2 to 3 times a week. There is a group of quilters, and I don't know how that works because I don't know if they can keep a 6-foot distance between them. They do get together for meals, but that would be a little bit more of a challenge because they have a soup, a Wednesday soup that they did once a month, which, by the way, was very successful and is a great thing for the community. The community really liked it, but that would go beyond the threshold of the 10 people that would be allowed.
Yeah, and I guess, and I don't understand how well the bug transmits, but, you know, if we're passing cards amongst each other, there are many hands touching many cards, and I think we would also want to encourage mask usage if possible.
On that note, if everyone sanitized their hands correctly prior to playing cards, theoretically, the cards would not be infected.
This is true.
I have no problem opening a senior center. I think they are all, well informed of the dangers. If everybody knows the risks of transmitting it and containing it, whatever, getting it. There are a ton of people out there that are suffering from being lonely, especially seniors. You think about the nursing home, they can't visit. I don't know if they're allowing visitors now, but for like a couple months, family couldn't go and see their mom or dad. I mean, it's, they couldn't come out of their rooms type of thing. It's really a depressing thing for a lot of seniors. And, a lot of them are kind of, some of my relatives are, you know what, if you're not gonna live life the way you wanna live life, then, with family and friends and stuff like that, then you're not as well off as taking a few minor risks, getting together and playing cards or having a meal together, or whatever, so, considering the liability waiver type of thing, we can do that. I'm all for opening it up and letting them get together.
And I agree with you. I just think that to assist them to be as safe as possible and to be responsible, we should provide some hand sanitizer and probably those little blue
Masks, if
surgical
they-
masks.
if
They can take one, put it on.
Requested,
Yeah.
I don't think we should even force them to wear a mask, but if they
But have a box of them
have them
available.
available to use if they want to use them, sure.
Does the 10 or less usually fit most of what they're doing other than the soup bit?
I would think so, unless they're having a dance or something, music down there, right?
Correct.
I'm only asking like how that would get policed.
I think the quilters, there's typically 6 ladies that are done, 4 to 6 ladies at a time. The 2 gentlemen that play billiards. Exercise, we might get close to the 10, because I know there's a group of ladies, there's at least 5 that are pretty consistent.
I've noticed too, our more mature citizens, when you're in the grocery store and Walmart or something, they're generally wearing masks.
Right.
So, I mean, they realize that maybe from a risk standpoint, they're a little higher up.
Right.
And so I think
And if we can,
give an opportunity,
reestablish
yep.
their First Amendment rights to gather, by all means, I think we should assist them in allowing them to gather as we are allowed to do by the Constitution of the United States, so.
and if the health professionals are anywhere close to on base, it sounds like round 2 is possibly gonna be worse, so let's get some enjoyment and stuff going now while we can.
Yeah.
Do you, as far as guidance goes, I actually would like a motion, and then the 2 recommendations that I'm looking for to be as part of that motion respectfully is the COVID-19, have them have a preparedness plan, which they can follow ours. We have PPE here that we can have. We have a big thing, a jug of hand sanitizer. We also have a cleaner that we use, and we can give them a spray bottle of that. So you just spray it, it lands on the surface, you let it sit. Same stuff we gave the fire department. You let it sit for 45 seconds, you just wipe it down, that's all you do. So we could give them that, and then we could encourage them to wear masks, or we could have some available for them, because again, we do have PPE here. That we can provide to them as well. So, and then the hold harmless, I would work with our attorney, Demick, on what that needs to look like.
Does the senior, do they rent the facility? Or is it just provided by the city
It's
for gathering
provided.
space?
We
Okay.
they don't rent.
Okay.
And I don't think it would have to be terribly large, but just some guidelines on the door, the 6-foot separation,
Recommended.
hand
keep your
sanitizer.
distance and
Highly
stuff like that.
suggest you wear the mask, just put it on the outer door there, that way, everybody is reminded when they walk in that.
It could be the same signs we have.
Whatever
up
we have,
front.
yeah,
Yep.
whatever our current guideline is.
Yep.
And obviously there's a contradicting study out there with the masks and stuff, that if you are infected and you're wearing a mask, now you're rebreathing your same air and you may be infecting yourself even faster. But anyway, that's why, you don't know that much about this whole COVID thing yet. I think that's what the big fear is out there, but.
Are you going with some waiver then that they're signing?
Yeah, I would think we'd just have some waiver to
Yep.
sign, right?
Well, I'll make a motion, we follow the recommendations of the city administrator to allow the opening of the senior center.
I'll second that.
Have a first and a second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. 9B, CARES Act update.
So the city has received or they will be receiving, we put the request in, it's not in our account, so to speak, but we are going to be receiving $276,000, 276, 154, 194, depending on which form you look at, but from the CARES Act, which is to be used on COVID-related expenses. Over the past several months, we have asked our departments to track what those expenses are so that we can keep track of it. So the easiest way from a standpoint of COVID is it's easy for us to, track our PPE, it's easy for us to do all those things. But some of the other nuances are a little bit harder to understand or figure out what we can do with, because we do have some lost revenues in a couple areas.
Man hours.
Man hours, yep.
That's-
That's a huge part of it. So Tessa and I had the opportunity yesterday to talk with our auditor, and again, they cautioned us because they're learning just as we are, but their recommendation, if we want something that's fairly straightforward and pretty simple to do, is again, those expenses that we can allocate 100%, Obviously, the plexiglass, or the glass that we put up here, very clearly COVID related, right? How do you account for my time? How do you account for Tessa's time? How do you account for extra cleaning that every department has to do at the end of a shift because of COVID? We might be able to do that, but one of the things that we know we can do is our police, our fire, and our ambulance services their salaries actually can get paid through the CARES Act. So we do know that. The other thing that I will tell you that I think is very important that we look at doing, and it's a discussion we're going to be having with MATA next week. Again, this was in a conversation that I had with other city administrators from the area. Many communities are giving grants to the businesses that have been affected by COVID. So right now we have four businesses that received a low interest loan from us. We could potentially look at then giving them a grant instead of a loan, and we could open it up to businesses. Now that has some nuances with it, and Lisa found out in a call that she had at 11 o'clock this morning that if we did that, we might be liable for Davis-Bacon, which is a federal kind of wage that you have to pay if let's say a business were to undertake certain types of things. Well, that opens up quite a bit of things that we probably don't want to do. So we could, again, just pay our, we look at make the city as whole as possible with everything that we have spent money on. And then because we are going to have, in essence, a surplus, because we've budgeted for some of these items, then we could potentially look at working with MATA to set up a loan fund, interfund loan from the general fund to MATA as a revolving loan fund to offer grants to businesses. So then it's not it's a little bit maybe easier way to handle all this. And these are just ideas, but I do believe that we're looking for direction from the council, but we really do believe that it's pretty easy for the COVID-related expenses to look at our police department and potentially work with businesses. And we are certainly open to looking at any other options that the council would like us to do. There was also a provision to give grants to individuals to help them pay for their utilities, but that is extremely kind of cumbersome, complicated. So we don't think, even though that's probably one of our lost revenue sides, it's probably a good idea to use CARES Act for that. There may be other ways that we can kind of adjust for those things. So it's kind of fluid at this point. So what we are doing is looking for a direction from the council as to what they would like to see us do. In talking with staff, Lisa and I both feel strongly that there has to be a component of this that provides business relief. So, and on the other side of it, as we've talked, I also think we have to make sure that we're making the city whole from what we have had to spend from our side of it.
You referenced, was it the Davis-Bacon Act? Does that have to do with prevailing wages? So somebody
Yes.
whoever gets federal money has to provide their employees with
Yes.
prevailing wages, which are typically, I want to say, 2 to 3 times private
Correct.
business wages and stuff. That would be a hard one on a small loan to $10,000 loan when you have a business that brings in whatever, a couple $100,000, $300,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at the requirements of, okay, so is it, they have to provide prevailing wages for a month?
Right.
For 2 months, for a week, or how do you?
And we don't know
That
that.
sounds just so complicated to go down that path.
And Lisa, I don't know, did you have anything more that,
Not at this point yet. I'm not super familiar with Davis-Bacon and what it's supposed to apply. I know generally it's on construction projects and such, but I don't know about
Yeah.
others.
The other concern. If you take out a loan, you don't have to pay it back. It's forgiven. Generally, the Internal Revenue Service treats those loan funds as
Right.
do not have income tax on it. So
And I think the proper way to handle that would be, all the loans stay in place, but you open it up to, whatever we did with the loans, up to $100,000, I think. They can apply for one of the grants also to pay off their loan. So everybody has fair chance at the grant money. So we don't give preferential treatment to the 4 businesses that took loans out.
yeah, I think
Or,
you don't want to see it characterized as forgiveness, it's not come back.
Right. right.
so yeah, that would be a better way to handle it. It's simply a grant that they can apply for, how they choose to use that grant dollars. It has to go for COVID-related expenses, so logically, it would be used
To pay off a loan
to
that they
pay off a
have
loan.
related to.
But again, these are, I guess, again, we're just looking for guidance. We do have MATA that is meeting next week, which will have a discussion on this as well. But we're wanting to see what the council would like us to.
Do we have any idea what the city has expended on everything we've done, COVID related? I mean, we got a lot of hand sanitizer, a lot of things up in the parks, and there's a lot of man hours involved.
Yeah,
And-
if you count man hours, that one's actually a pretty, let's just say our police department, we can figure out, police department as a whole, what we spend, right? If you equate, my salary, Tessa's, Lisa's, Gary's, whatever, we could probably figure something out. So, but again, for me, it's more, and I think there's enough there to do both. I think we can make us as a city somewhat, some whole from the expenses that we spend on COVID, and at the same time be of a benefit to our business community. It sounds, the other thing that I think is important to note, that if we were to give the business community grants, Stearns County has CARES dollars as well. They're willing to spend 25% towards any grant programs that we do to help small businesses. So they will participate at 25%. They're sitting on $14 million of the CARES Act money, so I'm sure they're looking at different ways to look at how they can spend it as well. But
Yeah.
they definitely want to be partners with the communities in Stearns County, and so they said that they would do that for us as well. So I think there is an opportunity for us to work with our business community and to help them, especially the COVID related, because that's what it has to be about, so.
And just, whatever we do, just be prepared to have questions from the federal government saying, okay.
Yeah, I think-
Prove to us that you spent this money on.
It sounds like a little more research is maybe necessary to
Finalize.
to see where the margins are within this government money that's being provided and how we can wisely use it and stay within the margins.
Right. We have, I believe, is it November 1st or December 1st? I can't remember. Is it November or December?
There's a couple of different ones.
Okay.
I'm
So-
assuming there's some sort of a sunset use or lose clause.
Yep.
Has to be allocated or whatever.
Right, so you had to request it by September 1st. We've already requested it, so we should be getting it shortly. And then, we are still going through the guidance as to how we how we can use it and how we meet the guidelines. So we're looking at that. If you would like, we'd be happy to bring back something to you next month. Again, I just wanted, what I'm looking for mainly is if you are comfortable or not comfortable with us proceeding on the business side of it, because that will guide how MATA wants to proceed. with what they would like to do and what they can bring back to the council.
And on the business side, like I say, I think, and I don't want you guys to spend all of your tomorrow, seeing how your MATA meeting is on Monday, but, you know, if you can get a little bit more research done, have a little better understanding, and then also being cognizant that as much as I hate to think of it, we're not out of the woods yet and won't be until there's a fairly effective vaccine, which could be hopefully within the next 9 months, but it might be longer than that. And I just don't know that we've seen the end of surges. We've been pretty lucky in this area, but I don't know that we've seen the end of it. And probably won't until there is an effective vaccine.
Right. So, well, I think that's certainly, you know, enough guidance that I have, and I'd be happy to move that forward and recommend that to MATA, so thank you.
All right, I think that's, we're on the informational items, is that correct? Informational items, minutes from Utilities Commission, June 22nd, regular meeting. Budget update, Finance Director Wayne is starting to compilation of the 2021 budget. Typically, City Council meets in August for a budget working group meeting to discuss preliminary budget prior to its adoption at September council meeting. We're proposing to set the working group meeting prior to the August 20th scheduled council meeting at 4:30. 10C, second quarter ambulance report. And that should do it for our agenda tonight. Thanks for joining us.
I'll make a motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.